The dignity and force of the Constitution is reduced by those who refer to it like a loyalty test or a political slogan.
Keep in mind, this is a time when people are being taught that America is evil, that America was always evil. There's obviously an anti-American revolution being built up, and the only peaceful way to stop it is by using the Constitution and patriotic culture as a loyalty test. Oaks should be teaching everyone that they have a duty to defend the Founding Fathers, to be patriotic, and a duty to stigmatize anti-American activity and rhetoric. But as I've said, Oaks is a globalist. He and his friends want a one-world government. The Fallen Prophets recently put out a presentation pretending to celebrate the 250th anniversary of the U.S. Constitution, but their real purpose was to further promote confusion and liberal politics among our people. Now, the first problem is the way they discuss the role and influence that the Constitution is supposed to have throughout the world.
We want to talk about two founding documents of the United States, the Declaration of Independence and the U.S. Constitution, including the Bill of Rights, and the significance of the underlying principles that are found in each. These underlying principles have relevance not only for the United States and its citizens, but for the world. In speaking about the Constitution, for example, the Lord revealed to the prophet Joseph Smith that he had, quote, suffered the Constitution to be established for the rights and protection of all flesh, according to just and holy principles, and that its support of freedom in maintaining rights and privileges belongs to all mankind, unquote. With our professional background in the law, Elder Cook and I have each devoted considerable time to studying the U.S. Constitution and the principles that it embodies. And we believe that the most important aspect of the Constitution is its role in promoting and protecting the individual moral agency of God's children everywhere.
They said that the Constitution was meant to protect the rights of all people, and this is true, but they deliberately teach this truth in a way that will lead people to embrace the globalist agenda. Take, for example, the issue of immigration. When the average normie hears that the Constitution is meant to protect the rights of all people, they're probably going to think, if our Constitution was meant to protect the rights of all people, then that must mean our government shouldn't deport illegal immigrants. It must mean that we shouldn't stop taking in refugees. And it must mean we shouldn't stop importing foreign workers. We should allow everybody to come here, because after all, the Constitution is meant to protect everybody. This is the false conclusion that a lot of people in the church have already come to, thanks to the vague messaging from church leaders combined with the mainstream brainwashing about immigration. And if we already think this way, then that means our people could be persuaded to let foreigners carry guns around us. Because, after all, the Second Amendment is part of the Constitution. And as our apostles said, the Constitution is meant for everyone. So surely we should let illegal immigrants and refugees and foreign workers arm themselves and carry guns around us. Of course. In fact, there's already people outside the church who have come to this idiotic conclusion. You've got people who believe that illegal immigrants are entitled to Second Amendment rights in our country, that foreigners should be able to carry guns in our country.
There are people, I've seen a bunch of responses on a bunch of different platforms, and one of them, I don't remember who put this down, but and I'll surmise it was something like this. There are millions and millions of illegal immigrants coming in, and if all of a sudden we let them have guns, then we just allowed the arming of a foreign army. Well, maybe. What say you, America? Do folks who enter this country illegally have the glorious right, the glorious blessing bestowed upon all, which is the right to protect yourself? I think everybody has the right to self-defense. Everybody has a right to defend themselves. And I don't think a government gets to tell me how I get to defend myself.
So there's a serious danger here. The church is joining Babylon in conditioning us to accept amnesty. They're brainwashing us to believe that anyone in the world can just come here and enjoy a system that was built exclusively for Americans. Yes, exclusively for Americans. For it says in the preamble to the Constitution that our system and the blessings thereof are intended for, quote, ourselves and our posterity, close quote. So yes, the rights contained in the Constitution belong to American citizens and American citizens only, not to the foreigners who are coming here. Now this may raise a question. Didn't God establish the Constitution for the protection of all people? The answer is yes, he did, but we should remember that all things must be done in wisdom and order. Just as slavery wasn't abolished right away, the entire world cannot receive American freedom right away. Even if the inhabitants of the world should physically move and live in America, we still cannot give them American freedom right away. And the reason why is that the Constitution can only survive to the degree that it's maintained according to just and holy principles, right-wing principles. And unfortunately, most people around the world do not live up to those principles. Most other countries and the people thereof have a culture that is either left-wing or third world. What this means is that the vast majority of foreigners coming here are a serious danger to our constitutional freedom, because they will not uphold the just and holy principles required to maintain it. Instead, they'll contribute to its overthrow and destruction. And let me make this point clear. Immigrants are left-wing. They will support the same left-wing policies that ruined the countries they ran from, just like Californians. They're no different from the Californians and others from blue states who move to red states and then vote for the same policies they ran from. It's the same thing. And some of you may be thinking, well, they can't vote. They're not here legally. There's no paperwork. Well, I'm telling you, they will be able to vote. If we continue to let them come here, if we continue to let them stay here instead of deporting them, then they'll not only continue to outbreed us and have a bunch of anchor babies, but they themselves will eventually gain amnesty. They will gain political power. And once that happens, they will unite with the American left in its effort to turn this country into a welfare police state. That's why Democrats and globalist Republicans are pro-immigrant and oppose mass deportations. It's about bringing in more socialist voters who will help the left outlaw guns, pass hate speech laws, abolish property rights, and turn us all into a bunch of government slaves. Continued immigration will lead to you being taxed to death, censored to death, and eventually being thrown into a gulag and physically put to death. So really, we cannot afford to let these foreigners stay in the country. Now, some of you may be wondering, what are we supposed to do then? If God said the Constitution should be used to protect all people, then how do we go about it without destroying our country? The answer is simple. We must spread the Constitution to other lands, especially the Bill of Rights. We must use our influence to help other countries adopt the same just and holy principles that our system was founded upon. Doing this will allow people all around the world to enjoy the same freedoms we have, but in their own lands. How exactly would we go about this? There are many things we could do, but the first and most important step is to talk about it. We have to share this idea with our friends, our family, and our neighbors. We have to convince the people around us to make this goal one of their top political priorities. And this applies to all of you out there listening, whether you're American, Mexican, German, Canadian, Russian, whatever you are. We need to convince our people, our political parties, and our governments to want the Bill of Rights adopted all across the world. And I want to make this clear. This is more than just a good goal to have. It's the Lord's will. He wants all countries around the world to have free speech, gun rights, and so forth, because these rights will allow people to live the plan of salvation the way it was intended, and it will protect them against the satanic organization mentioned in Ether chapter 8. Now, this is how the brethren should be teaching about the Constitution, but they don't because they're globalists. They don't want America's freedom to spread, they want it to fall. And so, instead of teaching the world to adopt America's principles, they teach the following.
The United States Constitution is unique because God revealed that He established it for the rights and protection of all flesh. That is why this Constitution is of special concern for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints throughout the world. Whether or how its principles should be applied in other nations of the world is for them to decide.
So what he basically said was, even though the principles of the Constitution are intended for all people, other countries do not have to adopt them. Whenever these guys talk about the Constitution's place in the world, their overall message is not that the world should become like America, but that the world has a right to immigrate to America and enjoy the freedom that exists there. Their messaging leads our people to embrace globalist objectives, to embrace mass immigration, open borders, and amnesty, things which, as I explained earlier, will contribute to the destruction of our Constitution, and this is really what the brethren want to happen. They are secretly cheering on the destruction of our Constitution, the downfall of this country, and the annihilation of our people. And if you're having a hard time believing that, let me remind you that these guys are regularly involved in globalist activities like attacking nationalism, legitimizing the UN, undermining the Second Amendment, undermining individual religious protections, and of course, saying that it's apostate for white people to preserve their culture and demographics, while at the same time praising other racial groups, like the Black NAACP and the Jewish ADL. So make no mistake about it, the brethren are trying to destroy us. Now, another problem to watch out for with their recent constitutional presentation is the feminist lie that the 19th Amendment was inspired.
Let's turn to a little bit to the Constitution itself. You know, with independence won,
Right.
the people turned to forming a more perfect union, as it says in the preamble. President Oaks gave a wonderful talk back in 2021 about the Constitution. And one of the things he said that impressed me was that it wasn't a perfect document.
Right.
It accomplishes a crucial purpose, as we're talking here, but it could be improved, and it has been.
It has been.
Over time. And he cited what he called two inspired amendments. Remember, the one that abolished slavery, well, the 13th and 14th Amendments abolishing slavery, and the 19th Amendment,
vote of women,
giving women the right to vote. Exactly. What President Oaks was pointing out was it could grow and grow more perfect over time.
For example, inspired amendments abolished slavery and gave women the right to vote.
The 19th Amendment was not inspired by God, but by the devil. The spirit of the 19th Amendment is a satanic spirit. It goes completely against the patriarchal system that God clearly intended society to have. And any serious reader of the Bible would know this. The scriptures not only make it clear that women are easier to manipulate than men, but that women should be submissive and subordinate to their men and remain in the home. In fact, it is in the home where women learn most how to be like their heavenly mother. And I want you to really think about that carefully. There's a reason why we only pray to Heavenly Father and not to Heavenly Mother. The two genders have different eternal natures. And with this in mind, I want you to think about how the scriptures forbid women to rule in the church. And society should follow the culture of the church, God's kingdom, as closely as possible. So with this in mind, it should be obvious that the 19th Amendment wasn't inspired by God. Women were never meant to have any political or military authority over men. They should, of course, be allowed to speak their minds and offer any insight they might receive through the gift of prophecy, as did Deborah and other prophetesses in the Bible, but that's as far as it goes. God wants women, to be in the home, to be obedient, supporting wives, and caring mothers. Babylon, however, would have women be men, to go to work outside the home, to take on leadership roles in society, and to vote. And what's the result of all this? What are the fruits? Fewer marriages and lower birth rates. So low, in fact, that we are not even replacing ourselves. That alone will destroy us, but there's more. We now have far more promiscuity and divorce, and far higher rates of depression, loneliness, and severe mental illness. And these are just the social consequences of the 19th Amendment. I haven't even touched upon the actual voting habits of women. Women are far, far more likely to vote left-wing. They are far, far more likely to be tricked into voting for a welfare state, to vote for open borders, to vote for hate speech laws, to vote for gun control, and so on. And it's because women are far, far more easy to manipulate than men. This fact is clearly taught in the Old Testament, the New Testament, the Pearl of Great Price, and even the current cucked version of the Temple Endowment. In all truth, the 19th Amendment is one of the greatest victories Satan's had since the martyrdom of Joseph Smith. Now, let's move on to the next problem with their presentation. They once again brainwash everybody to think that contention is wrong and that we should seek to compromise and unify with those who want to take our rights away. If you want to know why Utah Republicans act like Democrats, if you want to know why Utah elects people like Cuckold Cox, if you want to know why there's such a masculinity problem throughout the whole church, it's because of these rhino messages that are constantly being put out by our corrupt apostles.
He's been way ahead of the rest of the country and society and taking the position to eliminate contention, to try and find a agreement and sometimes on very tough issues that people can't agree on, at least that you can respect each other. Sometimes you can find compromise. Obviously, you're not going to compromise doctrinal principles and that, but he said that in such a beautiful way. And
so they said we should compromise on issues as long as they're non-doctrinal issues. But there's a major problem with that. And it's that compromise is really only possible if both sides are patriotic to the country. And the Democrats obviously aren't. They hate this country. They hate its founders, its culture, its traditions. Almost everything they do is aimed at destroying America. This means there's going to be a lot of non-doctrinal issues you can't afford to compromise on. For example, let's revisit the issue of border security and immigration reform. This country cannot afford to grant amnesty to illegals, nor can it afford to reform its immigration laws to make it easier for foreigners to come here. As I said earlier, foreigners are overwhelmingly left-wing. They will unite with the American left to overthrow our Constitution. So, whether they're coming here legally or not, it doesn't matter. We do not want any more immigrants, period. And keep in mind, immigration is just one example of a non-doctrinal issue we can't afford to compromise on. There are many others. So again, the brethren are grossly misleading you when they tell you to seek a position of compromise on non-doctrinal issues. Their advice will get you thrown into a gulag.
And I loved his talk. We probably ought to be reading directly from it, but
Your homework assignment is to read that talk.
it is. It is.
That talk they keep referring to is another prime example of the globalist brainwash that's so prevalent in the church today. I'd say it's one of the most dangerous, subversive conference talks they've ever put out. You see, aside from preaching the feminist lie that the 19th Amendment is inspired, Oakes said that the Constitution shouldn't be used as a loyalty test.
The dignity and force of the Constitution is reduced by those who refer to it like a loyalty test or a political slogan.
Keep in mind, this is a time when people are being taught that America is evil, that America was always evil, and it's being taught everywhere, in the schools, the media, the movies, churches, everywhere. People are being taught to vilify the Founding Fathers and to have their statues removed. They're being taught to celebrate the Indians or the indigenous peoples instead of the cowboys and pioneers. And of course, they're being taught that the Constitution is outdated, irrelevant, or too extreme for our day. There's obviously an anti-American revolution being built up, and the only peaceful way to stop it is by using the Constitution and patriotic culture as a loyalty test. Oaks should be teaching everyone that they have a duty to defend the Founding Fathers, to be patriotic, and a duty to stigmatize anti-American activity and rhetoric. But as I've said, Oaks is a globalist. He and his friends want a one-world government. They want the United Nations to rule over all of us, and in order for that to happen, America first has to fall. So of course he'll tell you not to use the Constitution as a loyalty test. Instead, he and his friends will tell you to do the exact opposite. They will tell you to avoid contention at all costs, or almost all costs. They will tell you to compromise and unify with those who hate us. And of course, they will tell you not to think of yourselves as American, because a national identity is not good for the globalist agenda. I mean, because national identities are universally limiting.
For example, if you are identified mainly as an American, those who are not American may think, I know everything there is to know about you, and attribute erroneous beliefs to you. We could go on and on rehearsing the constraints of various labels that we put on ourselves or that other people place upon us. And yet, the way you think about who you really are affects almost every decision you will ever make. Ageism, racism, nationalism, sexism, and a host of other isms are universally limiting.
So don't fool yourself. If you're a patriot or a nationalist, then the brethren hate you, and they're doing everything possible to undermine you. Another thing that Oakes said in his satanic constitutional talk, and it's something that is so widely believed by church members today, is that it is wrong for us to assert that faithful Mormons cannot be members of certain political parties.
We should never assert that a faithful Latter-day Saint cannot belong to a particular party or vote for a particular candidate. We teach correct principles and leave our members to choose how to prioritize and apply those principles on the issues presented from time to time.
What if we applied that same logic to the law of chastity, or stealing, or other basic doctrines like not worshiping other gods? What if we went around saying we should never assert that a faithful Latter-day Saint cannot worship another god, or steal, or commit adultery? We teach our members correct principles and leave them to choose how to prioritize and apply those principles as life presents those issues to them from time to time. That is basically what's happening now, but with our political doctrine. There was once a time when the church correctly taught that its members could not be part of the Communist Party. Everyone used to understand that Marxism and globalism were antithetical to Mormonism. Everyone used to understand that no real Mormon could be a member of such organizations or espouse such ideologies. And today, the Democrat Party is nothing but a Marxist globalist organization. So anyone who holds to the iron rod, anyone who holds to doctrinal consistency, will understand that no Latter-day Saint today can be a member of the Democrat Party. And they'll also understand that no Latter-day Saint can be a neocon or a rhino. Now, with that said, obviously there's no political candidate or party that's perfect. And in the world of politics, you will eventually have to support someone who doesn't hold all your views. And there may be times where they will have views that you strongly disagree with. But this is far different from being a member of a Marxist organization and enthusiastically promoting their views. It's far different from waving rainbow flags, handing out socialist t-shirts, attacking whiteness, and posting feminist propaganda. Sadly, these are common occurrences among our membership today, and it's the Brethren's fault. They've spent decades trying to shift the culture to this point. Perhaps their most effective strategy has been to mentally disarm Latter-day Saints by teaching them the false doctrine that contention is of the devil. Not that the spirit of contention is of the devil, but that contention itself is of the devil, that anger never persuades, and that contention never leads to inspired solutions.
Anger never persuades. Hostility builds no one. Contention never leads to inspired solutions. 2 years ago, I called upon us as covenant followers of Jesus Christ to be peacemakers. I repeat what I said then. Anger never persuades. Hostility builds no one. Contention never leads to inspired solutions.
This lie has turned a once noble and courageous people into a bunch of timid cowards who rarely stand up for their beliefs, let alone themselves when falsely accused of something. It's made them terrified to stand out, or to offend anybody, or to go against the grain, and ultimately, it's what made them, and especially the youth, less resistant to the woke changes that have swept across the world. And in addition to being bombarded with messages against contention, we're being disarmed by the constant encouragements to compromise.
He's talked about his phrases. The one I particularly appreciated was, on contested issues,
This is it.
we should seek to moderate and unify.
That's it.
When they tell you to take a moderate position and compromise on contested issues, what they're trying to do is poison you by degrees. They want you to gradually compromise all your rights and values away. They want us to eventually become another modern-day Europe. Europe was once white, and believe it or not, many countries had obtained free speech and gun rights, but they kept compromising and compromising to the point where they're now minorities in their own land, and they're now being arrested for simply speaking their opinions. And they effectively can't do anything about it because they kept compromising their gun rights away. Europe today is what happens when you try to moderate and compromise with the left. And as I've said, that's exactly what the Brethren want for us. They want us to be prisoners. The whole purpose of their fake little celebration was to encourage a globalist rhino attitude toward politics, and simultaneously lull desperate conservatives into a false sense of security about the leadership of the church, which the fallen prophets knew could be achieved by simply discussing the Constitution at all. Conservatives are so desperate to cope, so desperate to avoid addressing the actual cause of the church's woke infection, that when they see the Brethren discussing the Constitution, a topic that's traditionally conservative and patriotic, has a bunch of good memories tied to it, a lot of them automatically feel a general sense of relief, as if it's the Benson days all over again, despite what is actually being said by their leaders, despite the fact that the counsel being given is suicidal rhino culture. And you can see this desperation play out right now with the Mormon influencers. Few, if any of them, have put critical thought into what was actually said by Crooked Cook and D-list Todd Christofferson. Were some good things said during their presentation? Sure, but that doesn't mean you should trust or celebrate their message. They promoted a rhino political culture by telling us to revere the 19th Amendment, to avoid contention, and to compromise on contested issues. Their counsel will not save us from the Marxists. It will only give them more power to destroy us, and that's their ultimate goal. These are dangerous men. They are fallen prophets who are trying to lead us to destruction by mixing some truth into their communist globalist messages. And if you would like to help me counter them, if you would like to help me stop the church from going woke, then help me reach more people. hit the like button, share this video, and of course, subscribe to my channel and stay in touch. I'll be back.